Okay, let me get... Okay, hello everybody. Trying to get up and running here. I am mystified right now. Base, main, go to... Yeah, we got all kinds of problems here, you guys. The company that we use to do this whole thing is called Restream, and they completely changed the interface for how to launch one of these things. It's been the same for 2 years. They didn't notify the customers who are streamers. They didn't tell us anything was being changed. So now I've burned a half an hour of my normal prep time figuring out how to manage or just how to get this stream going. So we're going to do the best we can. We're down a camera because I didn't get a chance to get that done either. So we're just going to kind of try and figure this out as we go, guys. But it's just anybody who's in the software game, I am beside myself wondering how the fuck you change your entire interface and don't tell your customers when your customers are streamers. So it's wild. It's wild. So we're on basic preferences. Okay, I'm gonna have to fumble through this, y'all. So I've lost all my color profiles. Everything's gone. That's great. That looks awesome, right? There we go. Oh my gosh, it's so harsh. So harsh, you all. So harsh. Yep, that's as good as it's gonna fucking get tonight. Unreal. So I'm a little bit, it's been a hell of a day. It's been a hell of a day, ladies and gentlemen. So hello, everybody. We'll do the best we can, but for those of you just showing up, and that is a bit of a problem there. Let me get this fixed. I'm working on it. Why is that camera not there? That is the Scott cam. There we go. I understand now. Boom. That should be me. Wrong one. Me. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So those of you tuning in who haven't left yet, we have 2 minutes until story time. We're probably not going to start right on story time because we're very much behind on this. All right. Honestly, I would rather not be streaming at all tonight. I'd rather be sitting there getting hammered with my awesome wife. I think some people have similar sentiments that I have right now. Today, it's kind of the final big realization that people who think like me are in the minority in America. And that's, of course, a bit jarring. And by no means am I the first one to feel like that over the history of this country. But to just look at what I consider to be common sense and logic and law, and we find ourselves in a different world. And it can't quite grasp that. Thanks. I can't quite grasp that the people who raised me, to be like I am, would vote for someone who is the absolute antithesis of who they raised me to be. So I'm not getting political here. It's more of a philosophical concept that now I, like many others, am having disagreements and arguments with the family. And it is totally mystifying. To many of you met my parents at Siglerfest, and fantastic, great people. But this is a bit of cognitive dissonance. Like, how does this happen? If I had ever behaved like a certain politician, they would have disowned me. And now we have that disagreement. So that's a little heated thing. It's messing with my head. It's messing with my heart. So today's read is a bit of escapism, I think, from what last night and today, November 5th, November 6th, 2024, are going to be a harbinger of history for decades to come. Nothing's ever going to be the same after this. And I don't think people understand just how much things have changed right now, but they're going to see it coming pretty fast and furious. So tonight's read is the 5th day of Deer Camp. And those of you dear listeners who are here every week, we did read this about a year ago, but since we take this audio that we do on the stream, now that we have our sound dialed in and Steve's helping out with us with that, we take this audio, edit it, that goes into the audio book. So now we've got the sound humming, nice and consistent. Everything sounds all buttery. So we need to re-record these because these are part of the Death is Black collection. So we're going to get through all that. Boop. And that's a little bit high, isn't it? So we're going to get through all that. And then again, the second computer, let's go to chat. Our second computer monitor is not working. That's not Restream's fault. I had to rewire the office yesterday. I did that instead of watching election results till about 7, 8 Pacific time. So I haven't quite got to figure out how to get that back. So we're probably, when A comes in, it's probably me and A all cozy. What we're going to talk about is we gave a shout out to some of my writer friends, people who've been on the show before. So we're going to talk briefly about the art of short stories and how short stories differ significantly from novels. So that'll be the deep cuts. We still got to put bread on the table. We still need to get that deep cuts out for our podcast downloads. So, it's time to make the donuts, so to speak. Fortunately, I know how to order a donut. So that puts me ahead of some people in this world. We do have some interesting news, though. Hold on. How's it going, A? We have brand new hats in the store. A calls this the dad hat. And you're going to have to go, since I don't have the screens up for you, you're going to have to go to scottsigler.com/store and just search for hat in the search window, or they might be up there in the clothing right now. So I wish I could have been more prepared for you for this, but I thought this would be a very fun thing. Little Kraken's hat. Let me give you a close up. And this is not a fitted hat. It's got one of these on the back, but it's pretty cool. And we're going to send that out via newsletter and the text as well. Where do we have that son bitch? Right there. We're going to text that. Oy, everything's screwing up on me today, y'all. Let's go to main. Interesting. And then we've got this beauty too. We've got, because it's winter, Christmas is coming up, and you want to look as pale as I do, so you put on black to make yourself look even more pale. We've got Kraken's hats in the store. So that was supposed to be much more fun than it has turned out to be. Let's get this squared away here. Okay, there we go. Move my big noggin over here. Hey, at least my big bald noggin looks the same. Great, okay. Oh, A put them in the chat room, put links to them in the chat room. If you want to grab one, great. If not, cheers to you. We're going to try and get through this. And the sad part of this is, since I got my prep time got eaten up by Restream changing the entire interface before the show. Probably going to have to wind up re-recording this anyways, but I'm going to do my best I can to keep track of the voices and whatnot. But sometimes you have to do things over. It's the way things go. Go to main. Got this black. All right. We're going to do the best we can, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this party started. And those of you who expect to be able to go right to the reading, sorry about the delay. Do the best I can to put a note in there at some point. We are recording. Everything looks good. Okay, let's give this a shot. The fifth, forgot the classic. The Fifth Day of Deer Camp by Scott Sigler. First published in the Apocalypse Triptych, edited by John Joseph Adams and Scott Sigler. "There's a rabid badger in my skull," Toivo said. He looked up from the bucket in which his face had been hidden for the last 10 minutes. "I'm sure of it, eh?" George tried to ignore Toivo. He took another look at his poker hand, as if somehow the cards had changed in the 4 seconds since he had looked at them last. Nope, still 3 kings. He looked across the table. Jocko had a glint in his eye, at least as much of one as George could see behind the cabin light glaring off Jocko's huge glasses. Jocko was a good player. As one of the top accountants in Houghton, He could do math with the best of them. But the little guy had never been able to control his tells. The tip of his tongue peeked out from the left corner of his mouth. That only happened when Jacko had something good. But was what he had good enough to beat 3 kings? You got 2 pair, you little shit, George thought. I can tell. Your lip twitches like that when you have 2 pair. Toivo let out a long groan. Aw, jeez, he said. I don't feel so good, eh? And it's freezing in here. Did someone leave the door open again? To George's left, Bernie set his cards flat on the table, set them down hard enough to rattle the empty cans of Pabst and jostle the semi-full ones. Holy crap, Toivo, Bernie said. Either get back into game or go to sleep or just shut up. We're trying to play cards here. A woodchuck, Toivo said. Rabbit, I'm telling you. George sighed, annoyed that Toivo's whining was cutting off the game. You just drank too much, he said. I told you sausage doesn't soak up beer in your belly. That's a wives' tale. And it's cold in here because it's November, you idiot. Put on a 3rd sweater if you're cold. Toivo burped. A grown man can never drink too much. Arnold laughed. He was seated at George's right. Arnold, or Mr. a.k.a., as he had been known when George was a kid, had been coming here longer than any of them, had once shared this place with his grade school friends. Now his son Bernie did the same, the tradition passed down from one generation to the next. Arnold's friends had died off over the years, the victims of age, heart disease, cancer, whatever the Grim Reaper could come up with, really. Creeping middle age made George realize, more and more every day, that the same fate awaited he, Jacko, Toivo, and Bernie. Many winters from now, which one of them would be the last one standing like Arnold? Well, Toivo, then maybe you aren't a grown man, Arnold said. Now be quiet so I can take these losers' money. I know when my son is bluffing. Screw you, Dad, Bernie said. Toivo put his face in his hands. Oh, jeez. Maybe I should go to the hospital. George lowered his cards. Sure, Toivo. That little access road outside is snowed shut, so you can't take the truck. Hell, M26 is probably snowed shut too. So how about you take the snowmobile and drive to Lake Linden? Should only take you an hour and a half. Dress warm, Arnold said. About 10 below out there, eh? Jacko snorted. 10. Hell, more like 30 with the wind chill. 30 easy, Bernie said. And if you drive that Arctic cat off the trail, snow's at least 4 feet deep. Hey, Toivo, if you get stuck and die, can I have your turdy-turdy? That's a nice gun. Toivo stared at each of the 4 men in turn. You guys are dicks, he said, then put his face back in the bucket and threw up again. George decided to risk his 3 kings against whatever Jacko had. Arnold's wrinkled old fingers were holding his cards an inch from his face, so close, his bushy eyebrows almost brushed against the 5 faded logos of a white G inside a yellow oval set against a green background. Arnold didn't like wearing his glasses at deer camp, unless they were actually out hunting, which meant he almost never wore them. His glasses, much thinner than Jacko's heavy frames, lay folded up in front of his can of Pabst. This scene, the game, the people, the beers, the cabin, the freezing cold, Toivo over-imbibing like he did every year, it was all part of a grand tradition. If they counted Arnold's glory years, this group had been coming to this shack in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, the UP, or the Yoop, as the locals called it, every November for 40 years. Unless any of them visited Milwaukee, which wasn't that often. This annual 2-week trip was the only time George saw his childhood friends, and the only man who had bothered to teach him right from wrong. So many little rituals, from cheap beer to from the cheap beer to cases of ammo that were never used, from opening night bratwurst to the closing day cleaning party. It was all to be celebrated and treasured. Maybe George had moved on in life, sure. Maybe he'd worked hard to get rid of his Yooper accent, learning to say the instead of duh, yes instead of ya, because in the big city, he thought that made him sound dumb. Just because he felt the need to change, though, didn't mean he thought his friends should. Bernie, Toivo, and Jocko looked a little older every year, but to George, they would be forever 10 years old, forever 15, forever 18, forever the ages they had been as, together, they discovered who they were. But as kids or adults, what they weren't were good card players. George stared at Arnold, trying to pick off Arnold's tells. Unlike Jocko, though, Arnold was damn near unreadable. He might have a full house, he might have crap, there was almost no way to tell. Bernie smacked his cards down the table again. Damn it, George, you gonna play or what? George was. These boys were about to learn a valuable and extremely costly lesson. Okay, Bernie, George said. I'll see your 5. George took a $5 bill off his pile and set it on top of the stack of money at the table center. And let's send the kiddies home so the adults can play. I'll raise you 10. Arnold's bushy eyebrows shot up. I'm out, he said. He tossed his cards down. Damn it, Dad, Bernie said. It's my bet. You're supposed to wait for me and Jocko to go before you fold. Arnold stood, hitched up his flannel long john bottoms by yanking them up on the red suspenders attached to them. I'm retired, he said. I don't wait for shit, eh? He glanced up at the ratty cabin's peaked wooden ceiling, eyes squinting as if he was looking for something. His hand blindly felt around the table for his glasses. Then George heard something. The same sound Arnold must have heard seconds earlier. The distant, deep roar of a jet engine. Arnold put on his glasses. Assholes, he said. That's all we need is some damn plane spooking the deer. Jocko giggled. There was no other way to describe the sound. Most men laughed. Jocko made a noise that would have been more at home in the body of a 12-year-old girl showing off a tea party dress than a 40-year-old man wearing the same snowsuit he'd had on for 5 days straight, taking it off only to handle his business out in the woods. Deer should be scared of something, he said. They sure weren't scared of us. Are we going to at least try to hunt this year? Arnold grabbed his can of Pabst. If we run out of beer before the snow stops falling and the plows pass by, sure. Good thing we got 20 cases, eh? I'm gonna go take a leak. Jocko, try not to freeze to death, you damn pussy. The old man opened the cabin's rickety door and stepped out into the winter night, letting in a strong gust of crisp wind and a scattering of blowing snow. Jocko shivered. See what I mean? Freezing my balls off and we could be somewhere insulated. What balls? Bernie said. Jocko had more money than most of them combined. Every year for the last 3 or 4 deer seasons, he'd begged to get a better cabin. He'd even offered to pay the difference. But straying from the path was not allowed. Since George and Jocko and Bernie had been old enough to drink, they had come here with Arnold. And here they would continue to come when their own sons were old enough to join and keep coming until they either died or grew so old they couldn't handle 2 weeks of bitter Upper Peninsula cold. Bernie scratched at his beard. Not even a week in, and it was already damn full. Not even a week in, and it was damn near full. The guy had some kind of mutation, Of that, George was sure. "Bernie, put up or shut up," George said. $10 to you. Bernie reached for his money, then paused. He looked up to the cabin's thin, peaked wooden roof, just like his father had moments earlier. Jocko did the same, as did George. The jet had grown louder, much louder. The empty cans of Pabst started to rattle like ominous little tin chimes. "Aw, geez," Toivo said. "My head hurts so bad it's roaring." The cabin door opened and Arnold rushed in, stumbling from the long johns pulled halfway up his thighs, the suspenders flapping wildly. "Get down, eh? It's right on top of us." George was about to ask the man what was going on, but the jet engine grew so loud it had to be right above the cabin. George dove under the table, bumping it hard as he did, sending empties flying and cards and money flying. He hit the wooden floor hard and lay there for only a split second before it seemed to bounce up below him, the entire cabin rattling like a big box of dry kindling. Moments later, George opened the cabin door and rushed out into the freezing night. Jocko, Bernie, Arnold, and Toivo came out behind him, all pulling on jackets or stomping feet into heavy winter boots as they walked. Falling snow ate up the sound, but the woods were even quieter than normal, as if the low-flying jet had intimidated the entire landscape into a terrified silence. When the sun had gone down 6 hours earlier, the trees, both lush pines and bare-branched hardwoods, had been blanketed in blazing white. Most of that covering had fallen off, swatted away by the jet's roar to join the thick snowpack already on the ground. Clouds blocked out all but a dim, hazy glow of the moon. The only light came from the naked bulb above the cabin's door. George glanced at the cabin roof. It, too, was suddenly bare, just a few clumps of snow sticking to the weathered tin. He was a little surprised to see the cabin had remained in one piece. Pots had fallen off hooks and crashed around the wood stove, and all kinds of bat and bird shit had rained down from the old roof, but the one-room building seemed to be fine. Jocko's Jeep Grand Cherokee had 2 feet of snow on it and around it. Other than the Arctic Cat, which was so buried it was little more than a snowbank, the Jeep was the only way to go to the crash victims or to get them help. Arnold pointed north. A wall of trees lay in that direction, but if you walked that way for about 5 minutes, you would come to the pristine shores of Lake Superior. Untouched, icy rock beaches lining dense, snow-covered forest that stretched forever, the black water reaching out so far it vanished into the night. "The thing was going that way," Arnold said. Dark as it is out, the clouds should be lit up where it crashed. We'd see a fire from miles away." "Maybe it landed," Jocko said. Arnold hawked a loogie and spat it into the snow. "And where might it land? Ain't no airport round here can even take a prop plane, let alone that big-ass thing that flew." Dogs barking. I'm reading the video is a little bit behind the audio. Not much I can do about that, sorry. But we will now continue because A came up and just took a crowbar to those dogs, man. Just bam! Took care of that shit. All right, here we go. Arnold hawked a loogie and spat it into the snow. Where exactly might it land, eh? Ain't no airport round here can even take a prop plane, let alone that big-ass thing that flew over. Twice, in rapid succession, Arnold had said thing instead of plane or jet. Mr. a.k.a., George said, what exactly did you see? George had known the man since the second grade at Ontonagon Elementary, since the first time Bernie had invited he and Jocko home to play. Even now that George was in his 40s with a son of his own, he couldn't bring himself to call Arnold by his first name, no matter how many times the man asked. Lights, Arnold said. Lots of lights. Goddamn big, eh? Don't know what it was, but it wasn't a jet. Bernie threw up his hands in frustration. Dad, it was a jet. Your eyes are as old as hell, remember? Arnold pointed to his glasses. Had these on. Know what I saw. It was a jet, Bernie said. Jocko walked to the cabin's corner, taking big steps to push through the thigh-high snow. I'll check around back, he said. Maybe something's out that way. Toivo rubbed at his temples. Arnold is right, Bernie. There's no airports around here. A jet that makes so much noise could land on the highway, but other than that, it would have had to crash. Would have had to crash, and if it crashed, we'd see fires or something. George pulled his cell phone from his pocket. If it was a plane, maybe there's news coverage. Let me see if I can get a signal. Your phone hasn't gotten shit all week, Bernie said. I left mine inside. I'll grab it. He turned and trudged into the cabin. George yelled after him, and grab the flashlights. They had rushed out of the cabin, expecting to see pillars of flame, had grabbed coats and boots and little else. Whatever was going on, they needed to slow down, to think things through. Being outside at all in weather like this could kill. If they were going to go through the woods looking for Arnold's mystery non-plane, they had to use their heads. George couldn't get a signal. Being in the middle of the woods, in one of the most rural and remote places in America, he wasn't surprised. He put his phone away. Hey, guys? It was Jocko. He'd gone all the way behind the cabin and come out around the other side. He was leaning heavily on the corner as if he were suddenly exhausted. You need to come see this. Right now. He ducked back out of sight. Arnold started after him, the old-timer more sure-footed through the snow than the men 25 years, his junior. George fell in behind. Bernie came out of the cabin, one flashlight in his right hand, another under his right arm. He waved his left hand. The glowing cell phone screen he held seemed to blaze like a comet. Told ya, he said. AT&T works in the big city, Georgie, but out here Verizon gets the full signal. Hey, where are you going? Come on, Arnold snapped. Jocko saw something. George followed in Arnold's footsteps, which was easier than plunging his feet into the thigh-deep snow. Bernie followed behind, putting his feet in the same spots. He handed George the extra flashlight. George turned it on, pointed the beam out in front of Arnold. The old man moved like he had the place memorized. He did, but the snow was deep, and who knew what fallen log or stick might lie below the surface. George felt a little embarrassed that the snow here was untouched save for Jocko's fresh prints. He and his friends had barely left the cabin at all. Deer camp wasn't really about deer. It was about drinking and sleeping and playing cards and telling stories, about making fun of each other, about hanging out with the people who had made grade school, junior high, and high school a great experience. The four men turned the corner, saw Jocko hanging between saw Jocko standing between two towering pines, not even 15 feet from the cabin. A lone set of footprints showed his path through the snow. George and Bernie's flashlight beams spotlighted Jocko and the fluffy white that came up almost to his crotch. He had his back to them. He stood still, yet he was shaking. And somehow, George knew that wasn't from the bitter cold. Jocko looked down, looked at the lit up white around him, then turned so fast George took a step back. The flashlight beams lit up his glasses, making him look like a movie android about to unleash a death ray. "Turn off the damn lights," he said in a snarling hiss. Out of nowhere, little Jocko, the runt of their litter, had transformed into the scariest person George had ever seen. That wasn't like Jocko, not at all. He was terrified. Bernie's flashlight blinked out. George fumbled with his own for a second, then clicked it off. The entire world blackened for a split second, plunging George into a cold, dark, silent void. His eyes quickly adjusted. The first thing he noticed was a glow coming from deep in the woods. A green glow. His friends had become reverse shadows, their faces and clothes spots of less dark that moved and turned, all facing that strange light. They walked to Jocko, feet crunching loudly on undisturbed snow until they stood next to their friend. George stared. He couldn't tell how far away the lights were exactly, but through the trees and the thick underbrush, he could almost make out a shape. Not the shape of a big jet, like a 747, or even a prop plane, for that matter, but instead a thick rectangle, the upright edges maybe 20 or 30 feet high. The lines parallel to the ground were much longer, maybe 100 feet, maybe more. A rectangle or the profile of a disc. "That's not a plane," George said. Arnold nodded. "Told ya." "Aw, jeez," Toivo said. "What the hell is that thing?" Bernie shook his head in wide-eyed disbelief. "Sorry, Dad. Sorry. Guess there won't be any news stories about a crashed plane." Arnold nodded. "Yeah, that's fine. Maybe you should look anyway, though. Check on one of those news sites." Toivo crunched through the snow over to Bernie. "CNN? That's a good one." Bernie stared, dumbfounded, at Toivo. "CNN? Your phone," George said. "You got signal, right?" His own voice sounded oddly normal, when he knew it probably should have rang with panic. Something was very, very wrong. But Mr. a.k.a. was standing right there, and Mr. a.k.a. was as calm as could be. Bernie twitched like someone had stabbed him with a fork. "Oh, shit, right." He dug in his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen blazed, lighting up slowly billowing cones of breath. "Aw, jeez," Toivo said. "Turn down the brightness, eh?" Bernie ripped off a glove and tossed it down, not even bothering to put it in his pocket, then stabbed at the screen with the tip of his finger. Arnold put his arm around Jocko. "Son, are you all right?" Jocko shook his head. "No, sir. I don't think I am." "Yeah, I suppose that's to be expected," Arnold said. George stared at the man. How could he be so damn calm? George knew that he should be the one to say something, to get things organized. But all of a sudden he was 12 years old again, and so was Bernie and Jocko and Toivo. Mr. a.k.a. was the adult. Jocko's dad had died when he was just a toddler. George's dad had left when George was 8 and had never come back. Toivo's dad had beaten the shit out of him more often than not, had sent Toivo to school with long-sleeved sweaters to hide the bruises on his arms. That had happened since at least the 4th grade, when Toivo's family moved in, until the summer after the 5th grade, when Arnold had paid a visit to Toivo's house and had given Toivo's dad a lesson on how to dish out a real beating. After that, Toivo's dad walked with a limp. He also never laid another hand on his boy. Arnold a.k.a. and his wife hadn't just raised Bernie, they'd basically raised 3 more boys as well. For George and Jacko and Toivo, Arnold wasn't their biological father, but he was their dad. Mr. a.k.a. knew what to do. He always had, he always would. Bernie looked up from the phone. "Oh my God," he said. "Oh God, Dad. It's everywhere." Arnold squeezed Jocko's shoulder, pointed out at the green lights. "Jocko, can you keep an eye on that thing for me?" Jocko nodded. "Sure, Mr. a.k.a. I can do that." "Good boy," Arnold said. He turned to face Bernie. "Exactly what is everywhere?" Bernie pointed to the lighted rectangle. Those are Milwaukee, Boston, New York. It even says there's one in Paris. It's fucking aliens, Dad. That's what CNN says." Toivo nodded. "Was bound to happen someday," he said. "There's lots of stars, don't you know?" Bernie pulled the phone closer to his face. "They're landing all over the world. They're attacking, killing people in cities. Air Force is fighting them. Army's been mobilized. Dad, we're being invaded." George took 2 steps toward Bernie, snatched the phone out of his friend's hand. They weren't being invaded. That was ridiculous. There was some other explanation for this, because shit like this did not happen. One glance at the webpage confirmed what Bernie had said. George tried to poke the screen, realized he, too, was wearing gloves. He tore them off and threw them down. The cold sent needle stabs into his hands, the same way it had been stabbing his neck and face. He just hadn't registered it. George tried Fox News. Top story: New York on fire, London destroyed. He looked at Yahoo. It's not a movie. Our world is invaded. NBC. Invaders overpowering militaries worldwide. George's eyes fuzzed. The screen blurred into nothing. He was at the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, so deep in the woods there weren't even paved roads. He was 370 miles away from his family. My son, my wife, he thought. I have to get to Milwaukee. George handed back the phone. Bernie's right, he said. I don't know why this one landed into Yoop, Mr. a.k.a., but that's an alien ship. Arnold nodded. He hawked a loogie, turned and spat so it wouldn't hit any of his boys. Yeah, I figured, he said. Let's get back inside the cabin. Dress warm, get your guns, and make sure you have as much ammo as you can carry. The 5 men turned away from the green lights and walked back to the cabin, their feet crunching in the snow. Bernie slid his phone into his pocket, cutting off even that small light. They walked into the cabin and silently went about their business. Arnold's calming influence somehow stopped any of them from freaking out. They all had families to get back to, yet without saying a word, they all knew that wasn't going to happen right away. It felt like at least one of them should go crazy, scream about how he had to leave right now, and the others would have to wrestle him to the ground, but that didn't happen. They all knew they had to wait until morning, at the very least. Going out at night was to fear death from the cold just as much as fearing anything the aliens might do. Still, George wasn't completely free of crazy. As he put on a second sweater, then a third, he kept one eye on his Remington 700 rifle and couldn't help one thought from repeating in his head over and over. That thought was, maybe it's a good thing we didn't shoot any deer. We might need all of these bullets. All right, eh? Let's go ahead and get back up here where I can see all of you, eh? Turn that right there off. Oh, I screwed this up. Oh, turn the text off. You know what? I'll fix that while I'm at it. Let's go. Go to base. Nope, go to main. Oh, goodness. Shut that up. Why do people like that noise? It's crazy. Oops. Text. Okay, so that is episode 1. Since the 6th day of deer camp is very long and strong, down to get the friction on, you're going to have to wait for that. It's 2-parter. It's coming up next week. Lisa, we got more than minor technical difficulties tonight, man. We got all kinds of technical difficulties, societal difficulties, emotional difficulties, and aliens in the goddamn woods with green lights, because you can't have aliens without green lights. Am I wrong? You've got to have green lights if you're going to have the aliens. So let's see. Let's take a look. Oh, my goodness. And Restream has also got, oh, there's my count. Boom, boom, boom. Hello, everybody from Twitch. How you doing? Got some Twitchers here. How about the Yoop tube? We'll call it the Yoop tube tonight. Okay, here we go. Get my chat up. Oh, and stop this. I get the gas every night with you people. You people give me the gas. a.k.a. you can come up whenever you're ready. We'll get this figured out. Hello, everyone. Beth Copenhavers in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Oh, Shamblazing. Thank you, Cobalt. I love this story because it's interesting, the background of it, because I'm not a Yooper, but I lived in the last bastion of civilization before the Yoop. And so we knew a lot of Yoopers, but, kind of this love letter to your grade school friends, if you're lucky enough to have those. And Dr. Daniel PhD is one of mine. And then, junior and high school friends, if you're lucky enough to have those. My whole back channel chat that I talk to every day is all the guys I graduated with, my core group. And those guys they mean the world to me. They just are such a huge factor in my life. So getting a chance to write a story about, the boys getting back together every year, it's romantic. It's very nice. And so that's a big part of it. And then even though what I talked about earlier with having difficulty relating to my parents right now, is my dad was a father figure to a lot of people in that same general area. We saw the kids coming to school with the bruises. We saw, that kind of the absentee dads and moms who had left, single parents all over the place up north. You get the impression from media and society that that's an inner city problem. And anyone who's grew up in the boondocks knows that is not just some inner city problem. That is endemic throughout, probably most of the world, at least endemic through America. I can tell you that.
Also, I feel like...
Hold on. I didn't hook that up. Wait to have that thought. So, there we go, eh? This might take a minute there, eh?
That's all right.
We didn't have cute big city girls like you where I grew up, Didn't have them at all there. Your headphones, you should be able to hear me now, Pumpkin?
I can. Can you guys hear me?
No, not yet. Oh, because you're muted. Try now, Pumpkin.
How about now? Oh, there we go.
Woo!
Let us begin.
So, baby girl, I can't get the other monitor working,
So
and we're not going to do this. We do it live.
We'll do it live.
Do it live.
So here's the thing. I think that's probably totally true, but in bigger cities or more urban areas, I did that for the AC.
Oh, all right. I got it.
Because it's surprisingly hot up in this bitch.
It is hot in this bitch.
I also think there is more of a safety net, a social safety net. In the bigger the city, the more likely there is to have a social safety net where you guys really did have to take care of each other.
Yeah.
And even now, you guys know we go to Sheboygan, this last bastion of civilization that he's talking about. And you can't stay overnight at the hospital unless you're having surgery.
Yeah, the hospitals.
In 2024.
It's more of a drive-through.
It's
yeah.
It's interesting for me. I actually had that question for you.
talking.
Did you and your boy, your group, your gang of men, did you duck hunt? Or, I'm sorry, deer hunt?
Here, I'll answer that. I'm going to mute this. You're going to have to use your power to get into that sucker. This needs to come up a little bit. Wait. Oh, look at that. There we go. Simple.
That's my power.
Simple. No, I was not a hunter.
Unmute me.
Oh, yeah, of course. I was not a hunter at all. I did some shooting. Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD, was also not a hunter. Ken Moberly, I don't think hunted. Scott
None
Christian.
of this surprises me of these men that I have met and love.
Scott Christian did. Andy Kaiser absolutely did. Jeff Rappelgee did not. Am I forgetting anybody? Bob Gilland, I don't know. But yeah, so hunting.
Rob Otto.
Rob Otto was Rob Otto is a lover, not a fighter. We don't have Rob tonight. I'm sure he's drowning his sorrows in Jack Daniels and Diet Coke. That is. If you ever hang out with Rob Otto, you need three things. You need a smile. If you don't have it, he'll give it to you. You need Jack Daniels. You need Diet Coke. But out of all
Four
those
things: a quick wit. Quick wit.
He's got quick wit covered. You don't have. If you're hanging out with Rob Otto, you don't have to do anything other than be ready to be teased a whole bunch with absolutely brilliant takedowns 24/7. Yeah.
And never, Rob is super quick-witted, super sharp-witted, will absolutely tease you and will never punch down. He's like the perfect, he should be Santa Claus, he should be Puxatawny Phil, he should be all the things. He should be all the good things that we never want to have be cringy in our lives. That should always be Rob.
I will, Rob will absolutely punch down with this hardcore group of boys.
Right, fair, but not with any of us.
Merciless. He's merciless.
But he would also show up to help hide a body.
He'll help anybody any day.
He reminds everyone to fold, don't cut.
Yeah, he does.
Which is
if his cutting insults weren't so effing clever, you'd be really mad at him. But he'll say something, be like, "Okay, that's fair. That's a good one. I gotta get that." Okay, so now to keep. Did you do this? Did you open that back up?
No, you did because. Yes, because it's very hot in here.
It's getting hot in here. So, Steve, you may have to try and deal with this fan noise because it's hot. Let's do this now.
Once we actually get into deep guts, we can get into it.
Okay, so we're trying to chill this mofo out. Tell that mofo to chill.
I did ask you. I have to ask you a question. So you never went to deer camp?
No. But we did there were stays at cabins and whatnot, family cabins, so we know that.
Right, for sure. I have a bigger question that will reveal how little I don't know, but okay. I just know I'm going to get sassed for this. So you didn't go to deer camp.
No.
But did you ever sit in one of those little huts of ice?
Oh, shanty?
Yes.
An ice shanty? No, because I am smart.
All right, but that seems like how do you make how do you do that?
Okay, quickly.
And do you rebuild a shanty every year?
Oh my God. Where are you from? A big city? Do you rebuild a shanty every year? Let me walk you through this. First of all, lake's going to freeze in mid-November, probably late November, early December at the latest. And lake freezes solid all the way across. That's Mullet Lake, Burt Lake, Black Lake, etc. They all freeze solid. So solid you can used to be able to drive trucks on them, big old heavy pickup trucks. You could drive them right out onto the ice, and you would use. It was not safe. We literally.
It doesn't sound safe. It really doesn't sound safe.
We lost at least one person every single year.
Wait a minute. What does that mean? You lost someone?
Well, their truck fell through the ice and they drowned.
And died?
Oh, yes.
And what happens to their truck?
It's down the bottom of the lake.
And what happens to their body?
You send divers down to get it.
Then or later?
Later, after, because it freezes over the top of it. It's too cold.
I feel like if every single time it is the season where you drag little outhouses on the lake with a truck, you lose a person.
She's thinking. Dr. Dana Baker, PhD, is in the chat room. He can attest this.
I have been in this town that he's talking about There's a family fare grocery store. They sell fish. I've been there. They sell
It's not
fish.
same. It's not. Is it, the fish you buy.
No, it's far less expensive and less life-threatening.
The fish you buy in a store is never, ever, 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 ever as good as the fish that you actually catch. It's still delicious. So, to answer your question, families have their own ice shanty, which is basically, like she said, it's basically an outhouse on wooden skids. And when shit freezes over, you hook that up to the truck and you drag it out onto the ice. You unhook it, and the truck stays there, and then you get inside and you drink.
Wait,
and
but
you
the truck
fish.
stays there?
Well, how else are you going to get home?
Well, I mean, you drive it back out so there's less fucking weight on the fucking ice keeping you alive. Ah!
She don't know physics, eh? So it's, of course, you leave the truck out there so you can drive back. Now, some people are smart and only snowmobile. We would lose at least one snowmobiler every year. Because snowmobiling's super fun, and you don't want to stop snowmobiling on the lake just because the DNR says don't do this.
The DNR?
Department of Natural Resources.
The Department of Natural Resources. Hang on. The Department of Natural Resources
DNR? Yeah.
in Michigan
Yeah.
says do not pull your little wooden outhouse onto the lake with your F-150.
Yeah, we get the warning goes out to be like the ice is thinning at this point, and they do it at least a good week, 2 weeks ahead of time. Like we want everyone to stop going out on the ice now because it's getting too thin and it's starting to get slushy, which is a bad sign. And that means you're supposed to not go out on the ice when the scientists and park professionals are telling you don't go out on the ice. You guys, I'm not making this shit up. Dr. Dan Baker, PhD, is in the chat. I grew up with him. Save Untitled 3. Hold on.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I am the big city girl because have I gone down a snowy hill on a trash can lid made of metal and broken my nose?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have done
Yep,
that.
yep,
I
yep.
understand cold weather makes you do stupid shit. I get that. But I feel like repeated loss of life because of the ice outhouse is a bad idea.
Yeah, but it's okay because we breed quickly. It's fine. Trust me, it's fine. We breed extraordinarily quickly up there. You know.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if you can't,
Michael Moore, I already miss you.
And you know what? Cousins are
slow
okay.
brains.
As many as 2 degrees of separation from your cousins is fine. 1 degree is allowable. Brothers and sisters are frowned upon, but sometimes love happens in the wild. So to finish the story, families have their own ice house. You take that, it's called a shanty. You drag that shanty onto the ice, and then Daniel, I don't know how much you ice fished, but I looked at this. I'm not doing that. And then you sit in the shanty on the ice, and some of them have heaters, but it's still cold. You sit there for 6 to 8 hours. First you auger a hole in the ice, which you have to keep clear because it'll constantly freeze up. Then you put your tip up in. Your tip up is a short fishing pole that has a line going into the water, and it's down, and then it's held by a little bit of a latch, so that when there's a tug on the line, the latch drops free and the rod snaps up, the line snaps taut, and hopefully your fish gets hooked. And then you sit in this cabin, and if you're of age, because no one up north drinks underage, I would like to point that out.
No one anywhere drinks underage.
No, we do not have 12-year-olds drinking Bud Lights. Then you sit in there, and you freeze your genitalia off while you wait for the rod to pop up. That is what ice fishing is, and that's why I never partook of the ice fishing. It's a little crazy. Plus, all of the death. I'm not a big fan of dying myself, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And Coach Sigler did not. He went ice fishing, but I believe he gave that up before my brother Irv and I were of an age to go. Steve, yeah, ice fishing is by my measure, is absolute misery unless you really, really like drinking schnapps, vodka, or beer. If you like any of these three things.
That I did in high school, just like ice fishing, I guess you did.
Schnapps
and
keeps you warm, bro.
I really didn't enjoy it.
Oh, schnapps. I can't. After college, I can never drink schnapps again. Schnapps is one of the, let's just say all the liquors I can't have anymore. on a regular basis. I can have good scotch. I can have sake because I never had any of those things when I was younger. Everything else, oh, hey, speaking of good scotch, everything else, there's a powerful price to pay. A powerful, powerful price to pay. So you guys seen the movie Pumpkinhead? If not, Demon of Revenge. Awesome. 10 stars. You should go watch it. Okay. Let's go. We got a bunch of people hanging out. Hey, you guys, thanks for hanging out with us on the day after the election. A and I have had a very maudlin day contemplating what is to come and the changes that are going to occur in this nation. We're not going to dwell on it, but it's been a long-ass day for us.
I will say this,
though. Rob Tinnerella from Sheboygan in the house. Rob Tinnerella says he never went... He never went because he thought his fat ass would fall in the soft ice. Now, Rob, you may have a big fat ass now. I don't know. I haven't seen your posterior in many years. But in high school, Rob Tin Man was like just a block of muscle. This is just a staggering specimen. And yes, because you were denser back then, you have a more pounds per square. No, actually, it doesn't matter because it's the feet. You could have absolutely fallen through the ice. So smart, bro. Way to go. Way to go.
So I do want to say this one thing. Can you put us back to Maine? I will say this one thing. No matter how the election, how yesterday went for either one of you, whatever your outcome was, no matter what that was, I went to bed early feeling unwell, a little bit unwell, unrelated to what was on the screen. I was just not feeling too well. So I went to bed and woke up this morning super late, and I think that's because Scott let me sleep in, and I love you for that.
Oh, of course, baby girl. But actually, I came in. There was we have to get the dogs out. The dogs in the bedroom, they just want to lay on A and push A and make A move, no matter where she lays down. So her sleep is somewhat more fitful and restless than mine. So I got up at 6 a.m. for the 5th day in a row, bitches. 6 days. 6 days in a row, get up at 6 a.m. I got 14.
Well, that's next week. 6th day.
Oh, you're so clever. I have at least 14 more days to go to make this a habit, is what they say. And I got up, and then I'd come back and get the dogs out, and then A got up. It's just adorable. She gets up. She can't see shit because her eyes are garbage. She gets up. She's like, looking around like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, just go back to bed. And then she slept like the dickens for a while, and it was great. Chris Grawl says stayed up till 1:30. Wasn't worth it. Very similar. I went to sleep as soon as Georgia was called. I'm like, that's it. And then like as I'm turning the TV off, Pennsylvania was called. I'm like, God, no. I would like to have kept at least that fantasy alive for Danielle Crocker Burn House.
I was gonna say you had to mention.
Oh shit! Speaking of Sheboygan, Danielle Crocker Burr in the house. She says ice fishing has come a long way since the times you're talking about. My boys all ice fish, and they take portable shanties, heaters, and lots of snacks. Danielle, don't lie. The reason they take snacks is because you pack them snacks.
I would pack snacks.
Now, yes, if your mom packs snacks, but back in our day, mothers are more interested in punishment. Like, well, if you want to be out on ice all day, then I guess you'll come home when you're hungry. We didn't get snacks. I assume we didn't get snacks. Danny's mom.
Sure.
Danny's
mom
probably gave him
fried bologna.
Here's 18 pans of brownies, honey. Go out and enjoy yourself.
Steve, you're awesome. Totally with me. Like, we have, absolutely.
Including myself, 4 Sheboyganites in the chat room right now.
And if we count how many people can't see without corrective lenses, you all know what happens every morning when I wake up. It's all. And I have lived in this house for 24 years, almost 25 years. So I know where everything is.
I'm gonna talk the squishy romantic stuff for one more second. Then we're gonna get into our content. And A gets up. So there's a door right here, and past that door is a bedroom. So it's a sliding door, and it seals off my office from the bedroom. So I get up at 6, take the dogs out, and I try to be getting to work at like 6:45, 7, and then writing at 8:30. I'm not writing at that time, but doing other work. And then I sit here and write, and then eventually A comes out. It's the same thing every time. The door, it's like you're about to meet a vampire, because it's not like the door's, it's Indiana Jones. You hear grinding stone.
Because I'm also taking off my eye mask at the same time.
So the eye mask comes up here. So she kind of looks like she's like riding in an East LA gang, and their colors are gray and red. And she got this.
Wait, that gave you heart emojis.
I don't know how that works.
I don't know.
So she's got her bandana and vatos, and she's got what the?
You're You're making the heart thing. You're doing this.
So it's the squinty eyes. So she's got, I had my eyes closed. I couldn't see how I did it. So she's got this on, and then this always happens too. She's looking around as if that's going to do any good for her. So the bandana's here. Our face is scrunched, beautiful cheeks up, and she's like,
because I also have to wear mouth guards, so I'm just taking out the mouth guard. I am the sexiest beast anybody has ever slept with. Let me be clear. There have also been times in my life where I've had to wear a plantar fasciitis boot, but that is not right now.
I get hot for that shit right there. Come on, girl. Show me that shuffle. Let's go, baby. Let's go. So she comes out, looks like she's echolocating, trying to find me. She's Daredevil. And I can't, and like, I'm not gonna lie, my heart melts every fucking morning. It's the same thing. My heart melts. It's fantastic. Okay.
Okay. So we do, we're already
No, there's no CPAP.
There's no CPAP.
Not yet. Danielle Crocker, are you still in the house?
Yeah, she is. She said she doesn't pack snacks. If you scroll back, snacks. She doesn't pack snacks. They're on
Danielle, please tell me the ages of your boys. And then their favorites. I want to know their favorite snack. Then we will get into the content. Okay. Although this is pretty goddamn funny and cathartic, and I'm enjoying myself.
This anyway.
Wait, somebody says, Chris Grawl says, do two devil horns with your hand.
For those listening at home,
New York Times bestselling author Scott Sigler's extraordinarily mature.
Our deep cuts. We are trying to goose the algorithms.
Chris is just fucking with me. God damn it, I fall for it. Fuck. Every time.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Oh, my God. Michael Moore in the chat room says, full leg cast. Saw it at a strip club once. I'm not going to lie. If I see a full leg cast and she's stripping, I am making that shit rain. I'm like, sorry, ladies. That's all gone. That's all I got. Somebody's got to pay for fucking health care. So there
Mary
you
Garrett,
go.
you also said you helped a group of fifth graders.
Martin Evans wins the day. So he says, A walks in like the creature in Pan's Labyrinth.
Yo, I have not been able to see since I was 14 years old without correction. And I mean, not at all.
Oh, my God. Also, hi, Jack Forge. Jack Forge. She works hard for the money.
Oh, my goodness.
Hop on it, honey. Get your crotch now, honey, and you better dance it right. Woohoo! Fucking guy, you guys are killing me.
Okay, there we go.
Danielle Crocker Burr, who I love to death. 24, 22, 20. She was busy. She had a solid 4-year period going on there.
I mean, you know what? You wanna go strong when it's all day, every day. You're pee on your clothes. You want to do what? But this is what.
Also, you wake up, your back don't hurt, and you don't have an impetigo bothering you, and you don't got the sciatica. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna crank these boys out right now. Let's go. Let's get preggers. Let's go. Let's go.
That went a lot.
Every 2 years.
A 19-year-old girl.
Yeah. So, 24, 22,
I know. I
20.
wish I had.
Wait, oh my God! There's a fourth one in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Hold on. Let's, guys. We're gonna get down to business in a minute. But first, we have to address the flagging American work ethic. We've got Danielle Crocker Burr, who has a 22-year-old, a 24-year-old,
22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 19-year-old.
And then what did you do? Take a year off because you thought you needed a breather? And now a 19-year-old girl.
Apparently, she went looking for some of her classmates.
24, 22, 20. Oh, and a 19. See, there you go. That's an entrepreneurial
She went looking for some of her classmates who'd done nothing.
You know what she was saying? She's like, I don't need 2 years anymore. I only need a couple of months. I'm going to the gym, and then we're going to go again. Let's go. Excellent.
I hope she didn't say I'm going to the gym. I think she said I'm going for a spa weekend by myself, which is really just a Marriott in my town with room service and movies.
Whatever it takes, bro. Whatever it takes. Danielle Crocker, hey, you know what? Cheers to your efficiency for trimming a year off the process. That's going to get you a raise. It's going to get you a raise in any company in America, bro. You're doing a great job. Great job.
Oh, okay.
All right, as you guys can tell, I might be a little bit fucking hyper right now. I've had some issues going on today. It's been a busy day. Okay. Oh, goddamn, Sean. Sean, referring to Daniel Carter, says they had enough practice already. Daniel, I just, you know what I feel like? Honestly, okay, sorry we're focusing on this, but I feel like this is like the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme when...
really, Donald Crocker, I already love you, but I haven't met you, and you are not helping this situation.
Daniel Crocker, I married a younger guy by 5 years who did most of the work raising these kids.
I'm sorry, most of the
work.
Most of the
Work.
She said, I married a younger guy by 5 years who did
Smart.
most of the hard
Sister.
work
Smart, sister.
raising these kids.
Also, I'm imagining Bloodsport 7, because we saw 1 and 2. And there's Danielle Crackerburg. She comes in, and she's the one who comes in and just like, all right, let's have a baby. Like, she doesn't need to warm up anymore. She's experienced. She's ready. Just come in, savage, put Jean-Claude Van Damme's buddy down.
You know what's kind of amazing about this?
Yeah.
I feel like your high school classmate, who is the woman in that couple, is doing the same thing. Recently, we saw Jason Kelsey and his wife, Kylie, become famous while they were having their third baby. And Kylie posted this hilarious, here's how my husband gets ready for the birth of our third child. And all he's doing is like, I need a fan. I need bagel sandwiches. I need this. I need to bring pillows from home. He's not doing anything to prep her. And of course, you know, they're in it together. So she's like, I mean, I made that tongue in cheek and it was very funny. But quite literally, everything he brings to the hospital is for him. He brings a fan to face right at him. He brings 3 bagel sandwiches so he can do this.
Did he bring an ice shanty and a tip up?
No, but I bet
and a heater?
I bet that Daniel Crocker
Did his mom make him a pan of brownies like Daniel Baker, PhD? Mom made a pan of brownies?
No, I feel like Daniel's mom did
All right, so Daniel Crocker, Rob Tinnerella, Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD. Delightful to have you all in the room. I love it when Sheboyganites show up. It's very, very fun. But we gotta make some fucking bacon right now. We gotta do this shit, get it taken care of. God, what is it? Chris Grohl! Son of a bitch. So what we're gonna do now, you ready to go?
I mean, do we, or can we just post this? I mean, I feel like
I didn't record this, hon. I could strip it out.
Oh.
Let's just go through.
Let's go through it quick.
I don't think this will be very long, deep cuts, but it's fun because what we did is we reached out to 4 people you have seen on this cast
We
before.
should, but maybe we'll try and grab this out for extra content if we can.
Steve, you have your mission. Let's go. I'll figure it out. Figure it out.
Where is it?
It's on the video.
Oh, good.
Oh, I'm being a dick. Well, Steve, we'll figure it out. That's okay. Okay, let's just start recording right now. All right, here we go, guys. We're gonna talk crafts. Also, speaking of crafts, I am Scott Sigler down here, and she is a real girl. My name is not a real girl. If you want to call me a real girl, it's okay, but I am actually over here because I don't know how to make lower thirds.
All right, so you're gonna do that.
Jen says, "Post it, post it." All right, here we go.
If we can get it, we'll post it.
By the way, you Sheboyganites, hang tight. We got this down to a science.
You're recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but writing is writing, right? So ain't writing a novel and writing a short story basically the same thing? Oh, I'm sorry. Now I see. I had to pass the script over to her because of the shit show with my software guy. Let's try it again. Writing is writing, right? So ain't writing a novel and a short story basically the same thing? Hell no! In this episode, I will talk about the art of short stories. What are the unique challenges and rewards of writing shorts as opposed to longer works?
Wait. Just hang on through the break and we'll discuss.
Very good. All right, here we go. Now we get to the content. So we do magical stuff behind the scenes. Steve just, you know what Steve does?
Steve is the wizard behind the curtain.
Steve, take care of it. I don't want to know what happened. I just don't want to think about it anymore. Steve, make it I'm so sorry. Iceberg, make it go away. That's what he does. Okay, you right, baby?
I am.
Hello, junkies. Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss things and stuff in the world of writing and content creation. I am Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the Future Dark Overlord.
And I am A.b. Sigler, audiobook narrator. And on this Deep Cuts, we're talking about the art of short stories. What are the unique challenges and rewards of writing short as opposed to longer works of fiction?
A bonus reminder that this is a bonus episode. This is a bonus episode for the Scott Sigler Slices feed, not part of any particular tale. Listen if you'd like. We'd love to have you, but there's nothing in this episode you need to keep track of to follow along with the stories. Hold on, where's that extra? Is it that distant one? There we go. Now, right, well, Steve, deal with it. Deal with it, Steve. Okay, ready? All right, so here we go. Ready? Hit it, baby.
All right, so let's chat about the art of short stories and how that's different than long form. Let's chat about short stories and how that's different than long.
Jesus Christ. I'm the one drinking the scotch. What the fuck?
Oh my goodness gracious. So let's chat it. Sorry, Steve. So let's chat about the art of short stories and how it's different from long-form fiction.
And this is a huge topic. It could chew up many episodes. So we have one particular strategy for tonight. We may come back to this topic at another time.
For this discussion, we did ask former guests of Scott Sigler Slices for their thoughts about writing short fiction.
Okay, Pumpkin, set that timer and let's get into it.
All right, timer set.
Okay, here we go. So what we did is we reached out to 4 former guests of the show, and they all have a thought on writing short stories as opposed to novelists. And then, of course, our beloved friend Jonathan Mayberry, who sent us a page and a half of thoughts because he's the master of writing all the things. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask a Jonathan Mayberry question. She's going to Jonathan Mayberry. She's going to read Jonathan Mayberry's statement. I'll talk about it. Switch to another author. We'll come back to Jonathan Mayberry, who is pretty much the fat cat of the world of horror. He's the fat cat of the world of horror fiction.
And he absolutely deserves to be. So let's get into it, leading with a Jonathan Mayberry question.
Hit me. Hit me. Steve, deal with it. Deal with it, Steve.
You did say that. Hang on.
Also, apparently, now I am Beyonce. Steve, deal with it. Don't put a ring on it, but deal with it.
This was the one time I should have printed more than 2 pages. Ever.
You need the page. I don't need it. You're going to read me what they say.
Yeah, so here we go. Sorry, Steve. Sorry.
Here we go.
Let's
do.
So we're going to get into this with the first question from Jonathan Mayberry.
Okay.
From Jonathan Mayberry. Novels allow the room to develop a 3-act structure, but with shorts, we generally enter the tale closer to the end of Act 2.
And Jonathan Mayberry is an author who is legendary for his Joe Ledger series. He also wrote the V-Wars series, of which I got to be a small part of. And the V-Wars series was a TV show for 1 season. Unfortunately, my character was not part of that season. It was meant to come in later seasons, but it never happened. He is an awesome dude who spends a lot of time sharing his knowledge with other authors. And what he's saying here is, where in a novel you have the 3-act structure, which is the cornerstone of Western culture's storytelling style. Mm-hmm. Your intro, your middle, your ending. In a short story, you really don't get the intro. You really have to try and focus on, I'm going to tell you what the intro is by starting you late in the 2nd act, and then by dialogue, by situation, by narration, you're going to write Act 1 in your own brain, literally as you're listening to Act 2 and Act 3. So that makes it a much more complicated form than writing a novel. And from what I understand, writing poetry is far more complicated than writing a short story. You may think poetry is simple, but the really good poets are doing all 3 acts, a whole complicated setup, and only doing it in a single page or a half a page. So that's what he's saying. And it's really challenging because the one rule of writing that I adhere to is start as far forward in the story as you possibly can. Try to avoid a giant soft ramp up. You need to get people to the point where they immediately understand the characters, the situation, and understand the characters' conflict. Now, that could be life and death jeopardy. That could be this guy's about to lose a lot of money. That could be this woman is going to walk out on her wedding night. Whatever it is, it's getting the reader's attention immediately.
And almost assuredly getting the reader's attention without what I'll call goalposts or lampposts of your style of fiction as an author or as a reader who might know you as an author.
Mm-hmm.
You still just have to jump in and say whatever it is. Like the story might begin with our main character, linking their arm with somebody walking on the street and just saying, go with it, go with it, go with it, go with it, or something. So we also miss a lot of exposition that we believe we're promised later.
Yes. I think I can sum it up this way. Many of us have been in a situation where we are courting a potential romantic investment. A novel is showing the character getting ready to go to the bar, choosing their clothes, thinking about what they're hoping to see and all the other things going on, meeting a person at the bar, taking that person home or going to their home, and then, whatever happens there. Whereas a short story is you're at the bar at the closing moment and throwing out your final, exposing yourself and taking that risk like, maybe we should go back to my place. That's what a short story is just you're starting all the way into that point.
So one of our former Deep Cuts guests, Jennifer Brody, added to this conversation by saying, Jennifer Brody,
author of what? What's she the author of?
Author of A Sacrifice of Blood and Stars.
Great book. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
And a wonderful, wonderful human and novelist. She says writing short stories is a great playground to test out new styles of writing.
Oh, that's a great point.
New genres, new characters, and new ideas. If you're a long-form novelist like me, the challenge, and the only challenge, is keeping them short.
Which is, Jennifer Brody and I, we're working on collaborating on a project. And the reason that we have kind of been accreted together is our styles seem to be extraordinarily similar. Her writing style, her storytelling style, very similar. And I just learned this just now, but like me, she has a problem writing a short story. I go over the allotted words in every single short story I've ever written. It is invariably me writing an email to the editor saying, look, I know you wanted 7,500 words for this, and that was a hard limit, and you told me that was a hard limit, but just listen, I got 20,000 words. Could you just listen? You don't got to pay me. Just take the 20,000 words. Take it.
They're free.
This is every single short story I've ever written, and so I understand, it's hard for us to write short because writing short is harder than writing long, and writing poems have got to be harder than writing short stories too. So Jennifer Brody I understand what she's saying.
And this is a very interesting point as a non-creative like me, because we've told you 1,000 times. We get, Scott meets people at conventions. We get unsolicited emails, things like that. I once got an unsolicited email to emptyset.com saying, I know there is no submission information on your website, but I have completed my 737,000 word novel.
Mm-hmm.
My 737,000 word novel, which is, if you're not familiar with how many words you've read in a typical novel you've read as a reader, a voracious reader, that's almost 3 times as much as you have read. Maybe half If you're reading the big boys, if you're reading King, if you're reading The Dark
How
Tower,
much you say it
all
was?
that.
A question from the chat room.
737,000 words in their first novel. How many pages would that be?
That is a 3,000 word novel, ladies and gentlemen.
3,000 page novel.
3,000 page
novel.
A 3,000 page novel. Now, if you are George R. R. Martin, you can get away with that. Stephen King, you can get away with that.
No,
you break
I don't.
It up,
but
you break it up in many books.
Yeah.
But that is what the point A is making right here is writing long is so much easier than writing short that a lot of new writers write extraordinarily long without realizing the problem that they're making for themselves.
And as in our experience, we have found that people are like, no, if they're new writers and they are almost assuredly unpublished novelists, self-published or otherwise, they don't understand that it's not just you need to give us every bit of information about your character. It's that you need to give us the most important bits of your character. And that seems to me, as a non-creative, as a really useful piece of information for me and the novelist, right? I want both of us to know, you don't have to give me every piece of information. You have to give me the relevant pieces of information for this story.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that until we routinely received way longer manuscripts we couldn't look at, kind of thing.
Length matters, but sometimes things are too long.
Oh, often.
We get another Jonathan Mayberry thing going on here?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
So we do have another question. So
Chat room is jumping. By the way, if you're listening to this on podcast, we do a live stream every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can join us by going to twitch.tv/GodSigler, youtube.com/GodSigler, or facebook.com/GodSigler. You can be in the chat room. You can experience this with us. You can ask questions. It's a goddamn good time is what it is.
So we're going back to Jonathan Mayberry, our novelist, screenwriter, short story writer.
Our fiction Sherpa, the fiction Sherpa of the world.
Sherpa, yes.
Of the
so
world.
he first talked about novels being long form. Novels being long form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coming back in after Jennifer Brody, Jonathan says short fiction allows for more experimentation in genres or subgenres, storytelling structure, point of view, and so on. That might, they may be remarkable or marketable in a longer work. There are even more genres that thrive in short form storytelling like steampunk, weird tales, Weird West, etc., that aren't popular with novel editors/publishers.
Let me come back to that. Focus on that so you can hit me that question in a second. Great comment from the chat room. Michael Moore says, depends on the author. With printed, the publishers, I think, would have a sweet spot. Correct. But with digital, being ebook or audiobook, or what is very popular now, which is taking one giant fat ass story and slicing it up in 10 books, progression fantasy is one of these things right now, where you basically are watching a D&D character go from level 1 to level 100 and all the challenges that come. Matt Dinneman, master of the craft with the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, you can write a 10,000 page story and divide it up into these various segments. And so, yes, digital has definitely blurred the lines of what is allowable, acceptable, and what is successful and profitable. Because a lot of people just want, like somebody asked me today online, like, you should write progression fantasy because it's like a story on cocaine. Because they just want to experience the same story for 400 hours. And so there are formats in digital you can do that. You can't do it in print, but you can do it in digital.
And I think that the opportunity to have digital books like that really work for long-form authors, especially long-form authors who may or may not have had success in an RPG or something like that. We actually have in the chat room on YouTube, Esty Hoover, who is a long-form author of successful long-form works that potentially don't fit on a, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but don't fit on a actual printing press.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point, you have to be able to physically print the book, which is something that we ran into with Mount Fitzroy. Mount Fitzroy is 888 pages long. And to have printed that, we had to go to one physical printing press in the world.
Right, right.
So sometimes that has to be a genre or a medium type of book. Just like you're sort of saying, and Jonathan
Correct.
Mayberry saying about long form
But
fiction.
with digital or with audio, there now are certain genres that cater to that format. And they can tell the biggest goddamn story they want because the audience that will buy that book and pay money and spend their time just wants more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
The world changes.
So I'm going to hop back to some of our previous guests. Nicholas Sansbury Smith.
Nicholas Sansbury Smith, author of the Helldivers series.
Author of the Helldiver series, which is a long, expensive series of books. A long, expensive series.
Massive.
Massive. Expansive, not expensive.
Oh, it's expensive. Nick
but
gotta
what
get
I'm
paid,
saying
dog.
is
Nick SS got to get paid, dog.
He has also successfully chopped up his very long story into shorter novels for the purposes of putting books out.
I will say this. Nicholas Sansbury Smith, Helldiver series, tells a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end in each single book, which is more traditional storytelling. Progression fantasy, which we were talking about, I'm sure other formats I haven't found yet, basically take one giant-ass book and just chop it into 10 slices. But Nick is beginning, middle, end, and if you like the end, you want to move in the next, and you usually do, because Helldivers is fantastic. What do you say?
We will, as soon as we come back from this short break.
That was smooth as fuck, by the way. It was sick.
Oh,
You know what? I feel like you're the kind of girl who could come in with a fucking walking cast and in like a little blinder on your face and not be able to see anything. I'd be like, how you doing?
Well, it was smooth as fuck, and now it's this.
Steve, handle it. Ready?
Well, no, you gotta get back
okay.
to where it is.
Thanks, baby.
Here
That
it
was
is.
the thing I asked you to.
Yeah, that's what I
Where
did
do I
wrong.
find it?
No, I cut it off incorrectly, so I'll read
Okay,
it.
that's okay. I got it. Ready? Welcome back to Deep Cuts, the podcast where we talk about things and stuff in the world of writing and content creation.
We are currently talking about short stories and how they fit in the marketplace and how they potentially introduce you to new authors and new ideas from those authors.
Awesome. I like this. I like it a lot.
So we are going to go back. Nicholas Sansbury Smith, author of Helldivers, said, "It is difficult to convey a complete and compelling narrative and arc in a limited space.
Mm-hmm.
While novels are far more work, they are also far easier for me."
And so he falls into the same category as Jennifer Brody and myself, where even though you would think writing 5,000 to 7,500 words would be infinitely easier and more profitable than writing 100,000, 110, 120, 140, 150,000 words. It is easier to write the big novel than it is to write the short story. Yes, it is going to take you far longer to write the novel, but as far as the concept of telling a complete story, writing a short story is harder.
I have a question.
Shoot.
Is that because the edit on a novel is longer than the edit on a short story? Now, let me finish my question because it's two parts. Because you can write as long as you want and edit as hard as you need to in a novel, because that was a project chosen, agreed to by you, your editor, and your publisher.
Mm-hmm.
But a short story is often just hired in, and you're like, 3,500 words by May 1st, go.
The answer to that is short story is simply harder because people who gravitate towards writing novels, like Nicholas SS and Jennifer Brody and myself, that's the storytelling format that is natural to us, is telling this long, fully developed story.
Point.
So writing a short story is in itself, we are out of our comfort zone. It is difficult to communicate the things we want to communicate because our communication style requires far more space, depth, and breadth. Whereas writing a short story is you are a boxer who wins with only jabs. Whereas as a novelist, you have a 12-round plan to score the most points and win the match. A novelist is Floyd Mayweather. A short story writer is Mike Tyson.
So I am going to ask the next or add the next comment from Jonathan, but then we have a few chat room comments that are very important that we'll get to. The Jonathan that I'm adding here is short fiction necessarily involves fewer characters and a more simplified crisis/potential solution.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, shorts lend themselves more to first-person point of view.
Okay.
Lend themselves to first-person point of view or a deep third-person point of view. Their reactions, thoughts, feelings, etc. allow more story to be told than in a more distant third-person narration. So this is kind of what you're talking about, and the chat room is agreeing with you. Okay, so novels are easier to tell an expansive story, but Michael Moore in the YouTube chat room asks, but what are the margins, printed versus digital? And this is important, and I'll answer this before he answers the writer question. It's rare to do short stories as a single author short story anthology. You generally don't do that. We don't do it other than when we get the rights back to Scott's short stories. So writing a cohesive short story is harder to do because they're harder to those opportunities are harder to find for an established author. That said, when you write a short story, or when you're asked to write a short story for a narrative that, or an anthology that has a specific narrative, like apocalyptic, like you read tonight, do you think about the characters and the stories and the long form stories that you already have in your head?
Well, I would say there's no difference between the character intent a writer has between a short story and a novel. But in a novel, I have another analogy is in a novel, I get to show you the plucky 12-year-old girl downtrodden from the wrong side of the tracks, trying to make her way to the big university because she's got charisma and she's got more brains than all the boys in town. But you get to show that whole progression. And then when she gets to the university, you have all of that backstory with you. In a short story, you have to do all of that in that single slice of she's a junior about to move on to grad school early and have to communicate all that stuff in the back play. So The answer is it just takes more skill to tell the same story in a short story. And it's like positions in football. There are some people who could be a linebacker, could be a tight end, could be a fullback. Their body shape is situated to playing many positions. And then there's the kicker.
So before we move on to Brian Asman, who also was a guest on this show not too long ago, I do want to focus in on that a tiny little bit to say we have several parameters for choosing to accept an offer or entertain a discussion with somebody who wants Scott in their short story anthology. Mm-hmm. And ours are quite practical. And since there are writers in this chat room, I will talk briefly about some of it and long form about some other parts of that. But the briefly is, how long does it take to get those rights back? Because we want to own those again. And then secondarily, how does it work if it goes too short or too long for your projected what they've asked you to do? But the third thing, and I said these, I buried the lead on purpose. The third thing is the most important thing.
Okay.
If somebody comes to Scott and says, hey, I have this post-apocalyptic story, you can do everything, but the main character has to dress in green, whatever the parameters are. The most important thing about writing a short story for Scott today is, does it serve him? Does it serve us? Or secondary, the most important thing is does he feel that story? Can he tell that story? Is that story sitting front of mind for him, or is he having to tease it out and come up with a story about a main character in a green shirt? And that is always, to answer Michael Moore, answering your question, always going to be most important compared to how much you get on the return on the investment. So almost assuredly, short stories are only if they really, really, really strike the author's creativity and spark some story.
And there can be other elements to a short story too. For example, I'm in a fairly advanced stage in my writing career. As such, I have a certain following that many editors of short story anthologies would like to court. So I get emails on the regular like, hey, Scott, I'm doing this particular thing. Could you write a story? It would really help us out, either to sell books or to sell the anthology itself. So now in the business world, the business equation I face is it worth my time to write the short story for X amount of cents per word to give me this much return on my time investment? And the answer invariably is absolutely not. With what A and I do, my time should be spent writing novels, creating new IP. It should not be spent writing short stories for other people. Flat out, full stop. The only reason we write a short story is it's twofold, and there's a Venn diagram there. Number one is, I really like these people, and they are trying to do a good thing for a particular reason. So therefore, I will put my time into this because the payment I get for this is an opportunity cost loss for we're going to lose money doing this short story. And then the other side of that is, holy fuck, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I don't have time. Number one, I didn't have this idea. Number two, I don't have time to write a whole novel, which for me turns into a 5-book series, but I just want to dabble in this fucking world for this one little bit. And often those two things often overlap to the point where they are a complete circle. Like, fuck, I can write this thing and then I can also help these people do this thing. Let's fucking go. But at this, the sum total of this answer is, at this point in A&I's business, short stories are a loss for us every single time.
For sure. Now, I'm going to hop into Brian Asman, who wrote Good Dogs.
We just have Nelson McClintock in the chat room saying, recently finished Good Dogs by Brian Asman. Fun book. I wrote back, I agree.
Yeah,
great guy. Really fucking fun book. If you like werewolves, check out Good Dogs.
Absolutely. And I will add, if you're a pop culture fan, check out some of other things that Brian Asman has written. But I will add here what he responded to Scott, because I think it's important to what Scott just said. Right now, it's a loss leader for us to take on a short story anthology where he has to write a novel story for someone else. Why would we do it? Maybe this is why. Who knows? Brian Asman says, learning to write a great short story is especially helpful for genre writers. Why? In a word, world building. In sci-fi fantasy especially, and to a lesser degree, horror, short stories are useful and a useful proving ground for learning to world build economically.
Holy fuck. He blew my mind right now. You want to know why?
Tell me why.
I'll tell you why. Brian, aside from being a prince of a human being and having a great dog, this dog is fucking fantastic. I started my writing career by committing to, I'm going to write a short story a week and be done with it for 52 weeks. I will spend a year in the boot camp in the fucking muck of writing short stories before I move on to novels, to learn the basics of the craft, the fundamentals of the craft. I'm not going to tell you how many years this is going back. It's a lot of years. And I made it to 23 weeks before I lost it because I have ADHD to the gills, and I started writing my first draft of Infected. But short stories are a phenomenal boot camp. If you think you got the goods, you will learn how to do it. What Brian is saying is absolutely correct. Just write short stories to learn the basics.
Exactly. I'm going to back up one sentence and finish reading what Brian sent in. I'm backing up here. Why? In a word, world building. In sci-fi fantasy especially, and to a lesser extent horror, short stories are useful and a useful proving ground for learning to world build economically. In a few thousand words, you do not have time. to explain the nuances of how that Xenolux transpositioner works, but you learn the shorthand of showing a character to use it to beam themselves down to the alien planet. Conversely, making sure that your shorthand works shows that there's nothing that is going to trip up the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Is a challenge you learn in your shorter works that serves you forever.
Dude, I love this dude. He's just so fucking sharp and smart.
And he's such a good dude.
He sort of just came into our lives, and he is a wonderful guy, and that is really, really fucking smart. Short stories, writing them, whether you're going to sell them or they will sit on your shelf forever as a creator, teaches you many skills about how to find what is the core essence of your story. What is the hook of your story? What is the thing that in 7 to 12 words you can put on a page that will make any of you listening to this right now like, oh shit, I got to see what happens. The oh shit, I've got to see what happens is a skill developed by solid short story writing because you don't have much time. In most anthologies, there's 20 fucking heavyweights in the anthology. I've been in anthologies with Jonathan Mayberry, Tananarive Due, fucking big timers. And
Charlene Harris.
Yeah. People flip through and read the first 3 or 4 lines of that at most, and then go to the next story. You've got to come out with your punch has to be delivered on target, and that is what Brian is saying. Mm-hmm. How short stories teach you how do I deliver that punch, or as I call it, how do you hook that fish and drag them? Then once you've got the hook, you can slow drag them through the rest of it until you get to the point where they're pulled into the boat and you have that trophy fish. It's a great skill.
And for me, as a reader, I will pick up an anthology of mixed authors, some of whom I don't know, some of whom I love, 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 maybe even one of whom I love, 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 because I have been trained as a long-form fiction reader that I absolutely love the way Scott Sigler writes a book, or Jonathan Mayberry writes a book, or Brian Asman or Richard Kadrey writes a book, right? Or Kevin Hearn. But I will read the short story because I trust that they know what they're doing. And then I'm willing to be surprised because I don't think they're just going to leave me. They're not going to bring me to the edge of a quarry, say a salt quarry.
Salt quarry, I'm listening. That's a good hook.
And then none of the story has to do with the salt quarry that I'm standing on the edge of. That won't happen if I pick a book that has hired a writer I like. And so I'm more willing to try some of the other stories. And this is the whole reason I ever read Jim Butcher, by the way, is that he was in a short story anthology.
Is that, you picked him up from a short story anthology?
I did, yeah. Amazing. And the short story had nothing to do with Dresden, as it happened. So crazily enough.
To give you an idea of a little bit of the skill and instinct and how it works. If they had said, you're standing at the precipice of a quarry, I'd be like, okay, okay, quarry's great. She said, standing at the precipice of a salt quarry, I'm like, now I'm listening. I don't know why that connected with me, but giving me that tiny bit of detail, which goes in that 7 to 12 word lead, is then like, I'm standing at the edge of a salt quarry. Now I'm like, I'm going to read through the next 5 paragraphs. Mm-hmm. This also caters to Brett Keeter, who's in the chat room. Those of you guys listening at home, we have a chat room. We do this live stream every week. He says, also, thank you, Scott. Because of you, I got more into writing and had my first short story published this year. What? So while we are talking about short stories, we have someone in the chat room, and that is Brett, Keeter. If you listen to the podcast, look it up. I have no fucking idea what he wrote. I don't know. All I know is he's got goddamn good taste.
And he got published, and that matters.
And because he listens to this podcast, he got published. So Brett Keeter, watch out. Watch out for Brett Keeter. He's lurking under the surface.
So wrapping this all up before we end for the night, I know we've kept you a little bit longer tonight, but it was a very big day. I will say Jonathan comes back in with the closing questions.
Hit me. Let's go.
Or closing statements as the poobah novelist that we love. Jonathan comes back in and says, novels often require a cleaner and more satisfying ending.
Yes.
Everyone.
Oh, fuck yes. Okay.
Everyone, from agents to booksellers to readers, are wary of longer works that end on either a cliffhanger or with a Hitchcockian enigmatic ending, as in The Birds. Short fiction can far more easily play with reader expectations and story wrap ups in an interesting and unexpected way. And I think that absolutely matters, right? I think if you spent 400,000 words with a story and it doesn't land for you, you're much more big mad than if you read a 400-word story. I often say, for example, that my very favorite Sigler fiction is a story called Red Man. It's short, it's depressing. Gonna spoil it a tiny bit for you. It is not super shiny at the end.
Right.
It is my absolute favorite piece of Sigler fiction. I loved it before I ever met Scott because to me, it's real and hard, and it helps me look at the world and still have grace for other people who may or may not have caused the things that give me trauma, but react to the trauma they see on my person in a way that really responded to me. And so if you haven't read it, I think that one is in Blood is Red. You can listen to it if you want to. It's my favorite piece of Sigler fiction. It is not my favorite piece of fiction overall because it's a very hard lesson there.
Yeah.
But it does help me get through really hard times, especially like the, times when we're all trying to just figure out who we're going to be moving forward. And those are things that novelists can't do in 400,000 words or 500,000 words that they can do in 4,000 or 5,000 words.
That's a good point. We talked about how writing a short story is in several ways much harder than writing a long form story like a novel. In many ways, writing a novel gives the creator all the space they need to set the stage, develop the character, and drag you by your cheek or ear through that story. And good writers will figure out how to pull you through the dull parts that you need to know to get to the end. And the end in a novel has to be satisfying. It has to tie up all the things that you've heard. It has to give you that sense of closure. The key word here is closure. A novel, most people who read novels want some sense of satisfaction, closure. They want the sigh of relief that the story is done. They don't have to like how it's done. They just need to know this story is done. A short story, on the other hand, can absolutely cut you off at the inhale to the sigh of relief. You go, and you never get to know that final breath. That is one of the inherent advantages to a short story style of writing. I don't have to give you satisfaction. I don't have to resolve everything. I have to hold you to the end of the short story and leave you with half of a breath. And that is a successful short story. If you can resolve a short story, great. But most of the time, that's not what the art form is. The art form is I get you emotionally invested, and then I just fucking leave you hanging forever because I'm never coming back to it, which is one of the huge differences between a short story and a novel.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this wraps up tonight's Deep Cuts. Thank you guys for sticking with us through the Middle Kingdom bonus content there. We'll see if we can figure that out and figure out a way to post that. But we absolutely will be posting this video. But we're done for the day for Deep Cuts. I do want to remind you guys, let me get back to that. I do want to remind you guys that this is the end of this episode of Deep Cuts. We will be back next week on October the 13th. And
we'll be back next episode. What are we talking about next episode, Pumpkin?
We are actually going to ask you guys where and how you get your book or short story recommendations. We have all been inundated with news cycles, fiction cycles, sales, People magazine, all that stuff. We want to know who and where, who you trust, what you read, how you choose them, what your genres are.
Look,
we want all that. So
I'm fucking pumped for this episode. So all of you listening tonight, please come back next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I want to mine your brain for how I sell more books and take over the world. Where do you get your book recs from? We know we're going to have a whole separate system. Donnell Cockabur, love you. And Stephen, We want to know, where do you find out what books to read? And listen, we are absolutely vampires right now. I want to know so that I can just draw your blood and sell more books to other people. It's going to be an exciting topic. We're excited about it. Want to have you back.
So if you are watching right now or listening to this before Wednesday, November 13th, please email us at info@emptysat with where you get your book recommendations and how you buy your books, because we'd like to share that with everybody moving into the winter in the Northern Hemisphere, which may or may not be a lot of cozy core. Jeez. You know, reading horror stories by the fireplace.
That is it for this episode of Deep Cuts. Join us for the next episode. We think you're fantastic. And now, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you for joining us, you guys. We love you.
Steve, cut out all that bullshit.
No.
Yes. Yes. It got
Listen,
out of,
cozy core is a thing.
No, but cozy core, oh Christ.
Cozy core reading a horror novel where somebody eats your face is a thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve
is fantastic.
Steve the Iceberg Ricky Burger is in the chat room. He is now the full-on producer of the show. The producer of the show means he gets to decide what content stays in these Deep Cuts episodes and which do not stay in. And Steve, for the love of God.
This was a big day. You don't have to apologize for anything.
Steve, we're not sharp tonight. We're not. We've got as many as 6.5 out of 10 gears working tonight. Do what the fuck you do. But let's go.
Listen, we took care of both of ourselves. We fed both of our dogs.
This motherfucker right here, dude. Seriously.
I know. Brett Keeter. Can you send us where we can see your story?
Oh, wait. He needs a fucking walk up. He needs a walk up.
Can you do that without the...
let me see. I don't...
Brett, can you come back next week if we can?
Oh, shit. God damn it.
So you just turned down one of my ears.
Brett, are you still there? Brett?
Maybe.
Brett, tell us if you're there. Brett, you have to go to the chat room. Yeah, Steve, you do have more gears working than we do. It's frankly. Jude, love you. Nelzone, thank you for chiming in. I'm glad you tried out Good Dogs. Really sweet of you. Love you.
He quite literally.
Jen, you are. We love the fuck out of you.
Yeah,
we
love you the most.
Pam
Jen.
Weber, fabulous. Yeah, well, also, Pam, we don't give a year in time. Listen, we listen. It's great.
Exactly.
It's great. It's great.
You came all those years later and we're like, oh, I don't know if you're one of my favorite people. Of course I remember you. I also have to say, Steve texted, I've got more gears working than I do.
All right. So, Brett, if you are still in the house, I don't have the reverb, which Nelzone, by the way, fucking hates. He hates the goddamn reverb. So we're going to do this. The only one I come up with is Kingpin. What do you any other K words you come up with? Or B words?
Well, I mean, it could just be king.
Dude, come on.
It could just be king.
No, can't be king. That's too much. Too much. He's got to earn that shit. He's got to earn that shit. Oh, shit. Here we go.
Kingfisher.
Ladies and gentlemen and ladies listening at home and the thousands in the stands tonight. The first publication from Brett the Boba Fett Keeter! Congratulations on your first ever short story publication! Oh, now, okay, Nelson, I say reverb is fine. But, shit! Wait, no, sorry. Chris Grohl got it. Baby, ladies and gentlemen, it's late. Hang out. We're gonna do a little thing here.
Can you find the reverb?
I'm gonna find reverb
on your Mahoozy here.
Only for Brett. I'm gonna find a reverb. Here we go. Let me go.
There's gotta be a walk up here somewhere.
Brett, hang the fuck out. If you, I swear to God,
if this
motherfucker tuned out for the night because we were babbling,
we did.
I'm gonna murder his face.
Well, he didn't know.
His face. You don't have to know. You have to fucking hang the bitch out. Let's go. Oh, Galaxy Tape Echo. Hold on. Everybody's just calm down. God damn it. Calm the fuck down.
You need to calm down.
There it is. Okay.
You're being too loud. Uh-oh.
Check. Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, weighing in at approximately 225 pounds, hailing from parts unknown, a short story writer, who found his method through the Scott Sigler Slices podcast and the great works of Scott Sigler, entering his first short story publication of all time, Brad the Kingfisher Killer. That's all I got. Thank you very much. You guys are great. We enjoyed doing this for you tonight. You're fantastic. We stopped recording, which is what happens at this point.
Steve
it's
is
babble.
grateful. Steve
it's
is grateful.
fucking literally all babble. Ooh, oh God, I hope I recorded all that, Steve. Apparently did.
All right. So
Vamp,
you
I
guys,
gotta
we
save this.
will be back next week, which I believe is November 13th. And we will be looking for the 13th of November is our next Deep Cuts and story. The next week we will be reading Scott will be reading the 6th day of Deer Camp Part 1.
Sadly, the story is so intricate and so meticulous and so fantastic. I can't turn it into the 16th day of Deer Camp. Can we though?
No.
Damn it. This will be the 16th day of Deer Camp Part 1.
Sixth day of Deer Camp.
Oh, 6th day of Deer Camp. At the 16th day of Deer Camp, there's nothing
things
but...
have gone wrong.
There's nothing but...
things are already going
gentlemen in shanties with no pants who have urinated on themselves, and everything is going awry. Everything is going awry. It's tragic. It's tragic.
I have never been more interested in Deer Camp. But we are done for the night. We love you. We will see you next Wednesday night. You guys have made us smile for the first time all day on this 6th of November. We love you to death. We'll see you next week.
You guys are fucking great. Love you all.
Kiss off into the sky.
Bless you. And regardless of how you voted, you're fantastic. And we think you're special.
Exactly right.
We think you're
Democracy
all smelling
is
awful
a
lot like
democracy
flowers.
when it works.
Good day. This is bullshit. This new thing is bullshit.